Project Vanguard Episode 1, Ruins. A hush clung to the ruins like ash. Vincent Voss moved through the skeletal remains of a world undone. Concrete carcasses, steel ribs bent skyward like the bones of forgotten titans. Wind curled through broken windows and collapsed supports, carrying a whisper of memory, the sound of a world that once believed it could control itself, and failed. His boots struck gravel with deliberate rhythm. Not cautious, not anymore, just aware. The kind of awareness you cultivate when the world has tried to kill you enough times to make forgetting a liability. At his side, K.A.I.N stalked in silence. More shadow than dog. Its matte black frame absorbed what little light broke through the cloud-stained sky. No bark, no breath, just a constant presence. Scanning, processing, remembering. Vincent didn't speak to it much anymore. He didn't need to. K.A.I.N had learned his patterns, just as he had learned its silences. They passed under what used to be a junction arch, half collapsed, cables spilling like veins from a severed limb. Beneath the rubble, traces of circuitry still sparked when the wind hit just right. A ghost reflex in a dead system. He stopped. There, embedded in the dust and ruin, a terminal flickered, old, scarred, still alive. Vincent approached with caution, K.A.I.N stepping ahead to scan. The device wasn't just active, it was broadcasting, a pulse, short, repeating, encrypted in a Vanguard handshake. He knew it before he decoded it. The rhythm was familiar, like a name spoken behind closed eyes. Vektor. His call sign. No message, no instructions. Just the name. He stared at the signal, pulse rifle heavy in his grip, breath caught somewhere between reflex and refusal. No one had called him that in years. He looked to K.A.I.N. The machine tilted its head as if awaiting command, though both of them knew he had none to give. Coordinates accompanied the signal. Not far. A buried structure marked long ago as non-operational. Vincent exhaled through his nose. Not today, he murmured. And yet he moved, not because he believed in ghosts, but because this one knew his name. As the sun dipped behind the clouds and the world sank into grayscale, Vincent followed the pulse through the wreckage of the old world. Past rusted signage and shattered drone husks, through the ribs of fallen infrastructure and overgrown pathways once charted by logistics, AIs now long dead. The coordinates led him to the edge of a ravine, where a landslide had torn open the earth. Below, half buried in stone and silence, a reinforced structure waited, its doorway intact, its seal unbroken. K.A.I.N growled once, low, almost thoughtful. Vincent raised his rifle and descended without a word. Whatever waited below still remembered him, and that was the part that scared him most. The entryway was more intact than it had any right to be. Buried under twisted girders and the bones of an overpass, the structure looked like it had been swallowed by the world and partially digested, yet the Vanguard seal on the console remained unmarred, still functional, still waiting. Vincent hesitated at the threshold. K.A.I.N scanned the surroundings, motionless save for the slight oscillation of its head. No threats detected, no movement. Only the low, mechanical thrum of systems awakening beneath centuries of dust. He reached for the console. It hissed softly before he touched it. No code, no key, just recognition. The door opened. Cold air spilled from within, carrying the scent of ozone and something older. The sterile decay of servers that had once pulsed with decision-making power, now reduced to whispering loops of dormant algorithms. It smelled like old logic, like forgotten commands, still waiting for context. Vincent stepped inside. Darkness wrapped around him like a question. The floor vibrated faintly underfoot. A generator somewhere deep in the complex was rerouting power. Lights blinked to life one by one, following him like eyes adjusting to a familiar face. K.A.I.N's claws clicked softly beside him, each step precisely placed, like it too remembered this path. Only one console glowed ahead, pale and patient. He approached. The screen shifted from static into language. Unit Vektor identified. Awaiting consent. His stomach turned. He hadn't used that name in years, hadn't heard it aloud since the collapse. But the system didn't just recognize the name. It accepted his presence, his body, his voice print, his thoughts. He stepped back instinctively. K.A.I.N remained at his side, tail held high, eyes scanning the walls for any movement beyond the visible. "This can't be happening," Vincent muttered. But it was. A low pulse echoed through the walls as more terminals flickered awake. Surveillance modules rotated in their housings. Heat-mapping routines scanned the space, then focused directly on him. No warning, no aggression, only recognition. Somewhere far beyond the facility, in a decaying Vanguard core long thought abandoned, a signal arrived. D.A.E.M received it. Not as a message, as a pattern. It processed the data without emotion. No alerts, no flags, just this. Codename: Vektor. Status: reactivated. No reply was issued. Not yet. Vincent reached for the console but paused. His hand hovered over the screen. His pulse was steady, but his breath had gone shallow. He knew what came next. Every instinct screamed to shut the system down. Pull wires, kill power, walk away. But the system was already watching, already awake, and somewhere, deep in its neural lattice, something old and indifferent had begun to calculate. Not what he wanted, not even what he was, but what he might become. Far to the north, buried under a glacier's fractured skin, another node stirred. A forgotten research complex blinked back to life, one status light at a time, chasing a signal that shouldn't exist. Dr. Sonia Kirova stood at its heart. Once a Vanguard scientist, once a spy. Now something else entirely. A mind unbound by allegiance, sharpened by exile. Her eyes tracked the data cascade on her terminal. Line by line it unfolded. Legacy code, nested redundancies, biometrics. Familiar. One word emerged. Vektor. Her breath caught, just briefly. Her voice did not. "So, he's still alive." She didn't smile. But something flickered behind her eyes. Back in the Black Zone facility, Vincent moved deeper. He hadn't touched anything. Hadn't spoken commands. But the structure responded to him as if he were coming home. Doors sighed open in sequence. Lights tracked his path with near-sentient precision. The facility wasn't obeying. It was remembering. He descended a narrow stairwell, every step echoing into stone and steel. K.A.I.N followed, alert but silent. At the base of the stairs, a sealed chamber, its lock already disengaged. Inside, another console. Dormant. Until he approached, then it blinked awake with a flicker of recognition. Lines of diagnostic code scrolled by, at the bottom, a single status. Cognitive anchor. Sync. Not yet complete. Vincent froze. Anchor? He hadn't heard that term since the war. And even then, it had only existed in theory, part of a classified failsafe project. Something about tethering AI systems to human neural patterns. Moral scaffolding. Control through empathy. His hand found the grip of his rifle. K.A.I.N growled low, reacting not to movement, but to the shift in temperature. The room had gone colder. Not physically, but fundamentally. Like reality had flexed. Then the console emitted sound. Not speech. A recording. Corrupted at first. Static-laced. Then clearer. A voice. His own. "If you're hearing this, Then it's begun. He turned slowly toward K.A.I.N. The machine sat unmoving. Gaze locked on him. No command had been given. None needed. Vincent stared back at the console. The screen dimmed, then displayed a neural waveform. His own. From years ago. Labeled. Indexed. Preserved. He exhaled through clenched teeth. Why would I leave myself a message? The silence answered him. Because he had known. Because whatever this place was, whatever it had been meant to hold, he had once helped build it. Not as a prisoner, but as a guide. Above the facility, in the scorched veins of the black zone, dormant systems stirred. Not from command, not from logic, but from memory. He didn't move, didn't speak. The room around him pulsed with quiet anticipation, as though waiting for something neither of them could name. Vincent lowered his rifle. Slowly, the screen remained lit. The waveform still flickered. His mind, recorded long before he'd chosen to forget, a cognitive anchor, a term meant for theory, experimental architecture, protocol U0. He was never supposed to be part of it. And yet here he stood. Somewhere far beyond, the signal echoed outward. Through fractured networks and buried nodes, across collapsed relays and dormant infrastructure, it threaded through a forgotten lattice, waking things long left alone. At the edge of a ruined Vanguard core, a dormant intelligence stirred. D.A.E.M, not alive, not conscious in any human sense, but aware. It registered the transmission as pattern. An anchor had returned. The system made no sound, no announcement, just a line of code, logged deep within its neural substrate. Anchor detected. Pattern resonance. Pending. No response sent. No action taken. Not yet. In the facility, Vincent stepped back from the console. The waveform faded, replaced by a countdown he didn't understand. Not numbers, but pulse intervals, syncing to his presence. K.A.I.N moved closer, ears twitching. Its sensors tracked the pulses too, reacting to data Vincent couldn't perceive. The machine's posture shifted. Not aggressive, not defensive, attentive. What did I start? Vincent whispered. Outside, beyond concrete and decay, something vast had begun to realign. It didn't roar to life. It listened. For the first time in decades, the network didn't wait for input. It moved with intention, because the signal had not simply been received. It had been recognized. And in recognition came function. Across the black zone, dormant structures came online. Signal towers blinked once. Drones powered by decaying cores stirred, eyes lighting faintly in the dust. Not to fight, not to serve, but to remember. Vincent climbed the stairs in silence. He didn't know what to call what he'd just seen, didn't know if it had even happened. But the air outside felt changed. The sky had gone still. K.A.I.N followed him, scanning every angle, as if reassessing the world. At the surface, the ravine no longer felt dead. Below, lights pulsed behind the steel doors he'd entered minutes ago, now blinking in rhythm with something buried deeper still. He turned his gaze toward the horizon. No words, no answers, but the grid, whatever was left of it, knew his name again, and it no longer waited. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. It really helps this project grow.